Okay, I've been trying to do jurisdiction slowly because it's very complicated and it takes you like a year to learn in law school. And now we're talking about choice of law, and it's probably my fault. I've probably confused people. Well, so let me just see if I can make one simple explanation just to hold everybody off while we look at all these other issues, okay? There are 3 questions. There's actually 4, but we're going to forget about venue. There's 3 questions that come up about whether a specific court has power over a specific case. One is this a federal court issue or a state court issue? Which system does it belong in? The federal courts or one of the state courts? That's subject matter jurisdiction. I did that in the first video in jurisdiction, okay? That is a question of which system has the authority over the matters being tried in this case. The second question is, the courts of which state have authority over the people in the case? And it doesn't matter if it's a federal court in the state or a state court in the state. Every state has both state courts and federal courts that sit in that state. Okay? So regardless of whether you're in the federal or state system, every court is located somewhere. And the second question is, does the court have jurisdiction over the people in the case such that they have some connection to that state? Which is the part I haven't gotten to yet. And it's very confusing, but I'm going to try. This is what Jed Wallace is doing. It is a separate question as what we're talking about now, which is which state laws might apply to individual claims in the case. That is a choice of law question. You do not get to that question until you have satisfied both of these. A case cannot move past the complaint unless there's subject matter jurisdiction and personal jurisdiction. That's why Jed Wallace keeps moving to dismiss on personal jurisdiction, because if he gets out, he doesn't even have to get to here. It's the same thing Lively's doing in Texas. But assuming these are present, the next question is then which state's laws or which federal laws apply to the claims in the case. And I know that that is very confusing, but there's 2 general principles that I think will help. I literally scribbled this down on a piece of paper while I was watching TV, so I'm sorry if you can't read it very well. Federal courts can apply federal law, but they can also apply the law of any state. So every federal court in the country has the authority to apply federal laws and the law of any state if the other elements here have been met. Okay? If there is subject matter jurisdiction and there is personal jurisdiction, then any federal court sitting anywhere, as long as those 2 things are met, can apply the law of any state within the United States, in addition to applying federal law. Okay? So, and then federal courts have subject matter jurisdiction over a case that has even one federal issue. If you have federal subject matter jurisdiction for one claim in a 20-claim case, you can go to federal court. And it all gets pulled up to federal court most of the time. Okay? So what's happening here is that we are in the federal system because Lively filed claims under Title VII, which is a federal law. But even if she hadn't, she is claiming diversity, which is where she and the people on the other side of the V, Baldoni, Wayfarer, Heath, it ends with us, all of that, live in different states. And when you're residents of different states and there's $75,000 in controversy, that can also be federal subject matter jurisdiction. I made a whole video about it. Go back and watch it if you want to. Then the issue becomes which federal court? The federal court in New York, the federal court in California, the federal court somewhere else. So when it comes to personal jurisdiction, It's the fact that it's in the federal system. We've already established that. Now is, where does that sit? The Southern District of New York Federal District Court sits in Manhattan, inside New York State. So the question then is, does the Southern District of New York have authority over Heath, Baldoni, Wayfair, all of those people? And that's what Wallace is arguing, that it doesn't, and therefore he shouldn't be there. Once that has been established, then that court can apply federal law, like the Title VII stuff, as well as the law of any state. And if you have multiple claims, sometimes each claim is governed by a different law. This one's California, and this one's New York, and this one's Illinois, and this one, right? So it can be a claim-by-claim determination for choice of law, as long as these original subject matter and personal jurisdiction have been met. So if Lively, when she filed this, if the federal court system had jurisdiction over it, which it did, because there was a Title VII claim and also diversity, and the court sitting in New York had personal jurisdiction over the defendants, it doesn't matter where the plaintiffs live, but personal jurisdiction over the defendants, Wayfair, Baldoni, whatever, which they, I guess, decided not to fight because they go there so much. That's a whole other issue. But Jed Wallace did. If that's the case, then she can file that case in federal court in New York. That doesn't mean that some other court doesn't also have jurisdiction over it. It's called concurrent jurisdiction. So what people have asked is, why didn't she go to court in California? Well, okay, it would have been in the federal system again, probably, because there's a federal claim. So would a California federal court, the Southern District of California or whatever it is, have personal jurisdiction over all of the defendants? Yeah, because they all live there. So there were two different places she could have filed. The fact that there was potential jurisdiction in California has nothing to do with the choice of law for particular claims and whether California law applies. And I know that's confusing, but they're different things. The authority of a court to hear and decide a case versus the applicability of a state law for one claim are different legal questions. If she had concurrent jurisdiction and she chose New York, she did that for some strategic reason. And you can do that. You can decide. I think it would be better strategically for us to be in New York for whatever reason, because lawyers are there, because the judge is there, because it's closer for me, because more witnesses are there. There's all kinds of reasons why you can do that. But she chose to do it in New York. And just because she chose to do it in New York does not mean that she can't still argue that California law applies to contracts and conduct and stuff that happened on the set of the movie, because they're totally different questions. I'm sure that made it worse, but I'm trying.